Hi folks, I've done a video on battery basics previously, but I thought I'd do another one that is perhaps a little bit of a reminder, but more to the point. And I'm using 18650 Li-ions here as an example, but what I'm going to be talking about would apply to most of your Li-ion type batteries, but seems to be most prevalent with your 18650s. And before we get down to actually getting to the point, the first problem that you've got, particularly with 18650s, is navigating the minefield of lies, fakes, junk, overcharged rubbish. So looking at this as an example, 6800 milliamp hours. Well, that's impossible. The current battery technology does not allow for anything approaching that kind of power. I think about 3,500, 3,000, something like that is the maximum that we've got at this moment in time. And just by holding this battery, which is a bit too late, of course, once you've been sucked in by that outrageous claim, and probably the outrageous price as well, the feel of it is going to be too late then, isn't it? But you shake it, you can feel something is wrong before we even start. And I don't know whether I mentioned this one did test at 270 milliamp hours, not 6,800. Here's another example. eBay special, Ultrafire, 5,000 milliamp hour. And you go onto eBay or whatever, Amazon even, and you type in 18650 and you get presented with page after page after page of not only this type of thing, but also supposedly 100% genuine branded names that when you buy them they're not. Now, one of your first indications of a problem, let me see if I can get this out without knocking everything over, get it the right way round. I didn't knock everything over, just some of it. Okay, let's turn him on. Okay, let's see what we've got with that one. 23 grams. 38. Let's go for a decent manufacturer, shall we? 49. So it's always a good indication when if you don't have battery testing facilities and you want to know whether you've been ripped off, just weigh them. That's the one thing they can't cheat, is the weight. And when you get to your decent manufacturers, sorry for dropping everything, you can see they're all hovering around that 49 or 50 mark. So navigate the minefield of fakes is the first problem. Assuming that you can do that, let me move that out to the way. Let's look at some particular examples. Now, the first thing is we've got the unprotected or protected cells. And I've got here an example of a protected. We've got another one here. A keep power, we can see that the rating's on the side, 3,500 milliamp hour, as is with the keep power. And your protected cells come with a downside and an upside. The downside is they're often limited on their maximum output in terms of amps. So as we can see clearly on this night core here, it can put out 8 amps. The keep power's 10 amps. But what you get in return is a protection circuit, which will prevent the battery from either being overcharged or over discharged. Both of those two things can either ruin your cell, or in extreme circumstances, particularly with the overcharging, or if you try and start to charge a damaged cell, the risk of fire. So it's generally advised that if you're not particularly sure what you're doing, then your protected cells are definitely the way to go. You would move away from your protected cell if you needed something that had a much higher output than, for example, 8 amps with this night core or the keep power. Your manufacturer's branding You tend not to have any problems with these, certainly not with the Olight product, so you're always kind of safe with those. The same with your, this particular one is a through-night. Through-night tend to use decent batteries. So if you're buying a decent branded torch in the first place that comes with a battery, as those two were supplied with an Olight and a through-night that I've got, you're generally okay. So what I'm mainly talking about is when you're buying replacement batteries. And that brings us perhaps to the point. These are the four, in my humble opinion, that you should be going for. In fact, actually, with a caveat on there, and I'll just jump back. Sorry if I made my mistake. I'll just jump back to the issue of protected or unprotected. If you're using unprotected cells, but you're using an unprotected cell in a decent quality charger, such as this Dragon X-Star, this will not overcharge the cells. If you're using a decent torch, such as this Olight, it will switch off when it detects the voltage has dropped below a certain point anyway. So if you were going to be using unprotected cells in either a decent charger or a decent quality torch that may have inbuilt charging, the device itself would protect the battery by either preventing the overcharge or the over discharge. So that's when you kind of stray into the unprotected territory, when you are confident that the equipment that you're using will neither overcharge nor over discharge the battery concerned. So something like this kind of cheap headlight that I got from China with an inbuilt USB charger in there, it's extremely unlikely that within this mechanism is either a overcharge protection via this port here or an over discharge protection if I leave it on too long. So if you try and save money by buying, this kind of cheap budget stuff, which I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I wouldn't use unprotected cells in this type of equipment, because you're just going to ruin your batteries, or at worst create some type of accident. So I'll quite happily use this cheap thing here, but then I don't save the money because I have to buy the more expensive protected cells and use those, and then the cell will kind of look after itself and I don't need to rely on the equipment to do it. So jumping back to what I was about to say in terms of my 4 favourite batteries, if indeed you are happy to use unprotected, which I am, and the reason you've moved towards the unprotected is all four of these batteries will put out much more power than a protected cell can, and in the case of these four, 20 amps. So if I had a particularly high powered flashlight and I put this one in, this Nightcore battery, I may well trip it out. The protection circuit would click in and it would just go pink and click out altogether. So that's why in some circumstances you'd have to move towards these types of batteries. Now these are the 4 that I stick with. We've got the LG HG2 3000 milliamp hour 20 amp drain. They come in flat top or button top, so I highly recommend those. We've got the Samsung 30Q, which again is a 3000 milliamp hour with a 20 amp drain. The next one up is a Sony VTC6, 3000 milliamp hour 20 amp drain. You can see the common theme, can't we? I'm picking decent manufacturers with an unprotected cell of the highest capacity that is available at this moment in time, 3000 milliamp hours on these type. And as a budget runner-up, the lowly Samsung 25R, which I think will put out a little bit more than 20 amps, but the capacity is not as much. You're on about 2,200 with these, is it? Oh, 2,500. Yeah. So you lag a little bit behind on the power, but you can pick these up cheap as chips. The other 3 there are a little bit difficult to get hold of with the button top on. I'm told that Fogstar will be getting some in. I keep on mentioning Fogstar, don't I? That's the only retailer that I found in the UK that actually sends and provides what it is that they say that they're selling. And in fact, that's where all of these cells have come from, apart from the manufacturer ones there. So folks, pays your money, takes your chance, and be careful what batteries you buy. So in summary, if you want the high capacity and the high drain, you go for your unprotected, but stick with your decent manufacturers and make sure that the equipment that you're using it in will protect the battery from either over discharge or overcharge. If you're not sure, stick with your decent quality protected cells and avoid your eBay crap. Thanks folks.